Greetings, Pokefans! Michael here. So a fun fact about me that most of you probably don't know is that I actually play the ukulele. Here, I'll demonstrate for you. What? I didn't say I played very much. Most of you have probably seen my video about what happens inside a Pokeball since it was a big hit. The video has accumulated almost 9 million views, and it actually recently passed up How Old Is Ash Ketchum to be my most viewed video of all time. I was reminiscing about this video lately since we're approaching the 3-year anniversary of its upload, and it got me thinking about some more specific topics and questions about what goes on inside a Pokeball that I didn't cover before. So since it's been a while since I made a Pokemon questions video and I really wanted to discuss these things, I decided to make this video. Here in What Happens Inside a Pokeball Part 2, I'm going to attempt to answer some more specific questions about what goes on while a Pokemon is inside a Pokeball that I've never discussed before. But before we dive into that, let's do a quick recap of what I found in the original What Happens Inside a Pokeball. Now, if you haven't seen that video yet, which I think is pretty unlikely, I do recommend that you watch it to get the full analysis. But if you have, then you might remember that most evidence points to Pokemon being simply shrunk down and sitting inside the Pokeball. They remain conscious and aware of their surroundings, and they are not converted to energy except for when they are entering or leaving the Pokeball. But one thing I wanted to find out more about is how this experience differs depending on the type of Pokeball that a Pokemon is within. There are 26 different types of Pokeballs currently, from the Water Pokemon catching Lure and Dive Balls to the Friendship Catalyst Luxury and Friend Balls. With all this variety, there's no way that every ball invokes the exact same experiences on the Pokemon that are within them. In the original What Happens Inside a Pokeball video, I discussed something called the ideal environment theory, which basically says that the inside of a Pokeball mimics the ideal environment for whatever Pokemon is within it. Now, while I did debunk that theory, I now think that there actually may be a bit of truth to it. Pokeballs are designed to keep Pokemon in them, hence why they're used to capture Pokemon. They do this by being both physically difficult to open, but also by making it so that the Pokemon has an incentive to stay. Lucian has discussed an example of this before. He tells us that the instinctive posture for a Pokemon when it is weakened is to curl up, so Pokeballs are designed to be round to make the Pokemon more comfortable. This incentive to stay is what I think makes the various types of Pokeballs different. Different Pokeballs are better at catching certain types of Pokemon because they create an environment that makes those types of Pokemon want to stay in the Pokeballs more. To give you a few examples, a Dive Ball is probably better at catching underwater, fishing, or surfing Pokemon because it creates an environment within it that's especially pleasant for water-type Pokemon. A Nest Ball probably creates an environment that's very comforting for young or weaker Pokemon, and a Repeat Ball might work by taking data from the Pokedex of Pokemon that you've already caught, and then creating an environment within it specifically tailored for Pokemon of that species. Now, there are a solid amount of Pokeballs that this argument doesn't make as much sense for, since they don't specialize in certain categories of Pokemon, such as Pokemon caught while fishing or a Pokemon that you've caught before. For example, the Quick Ball. I don't think it makes much sense to say that it has a really enticing environment if you throw it on the first turn, but all the other ones used in that battle don't have the same environment. Well, for the rest of these Pokeballs, I would argue that their internal environments are very similar to regular Pokeballs. What I believe is that their specialization in catching isn't due to a change in internal environment, but a change in how physically difficult they are to escape from. Timer Balls probably take a long time to charge up their capturing strength, but after a while they're really difficult to break out of. Dusk Balls are probably better at holding a Pokemon in if they're not exposed to direct sunlight, and Quick Balls probably all have a big burst of capturing strength at the beginning of a battle that fades pretty quickly. But other than those physically difficult to break out of differences, I think their internal environments are pretty much the same as any regular old Pokeball. The only exceptions are the Friend, Luxury, and Heal Balls. Friend and Luxury Balls both make a Pokemon more friendly, so it makes sense that their internal environments would be a lot more pleasant and comforting. However, since they don't provide any extra incentive for a Pokemon to stay within them during the process of capture, I suspect that this extra comfort doesn't kick in until the Pokemon is already fully captured. The same is true for a Heal Ball, except instead of creating perpetual comfort, it just releases a one-time dose of medicine. The discussion of Heal Balls transitions nicely into my next topic. How are Pokemon healed within their Pokeballs? Based on animations from Fire Red and Leaf Green, we already know that if you use medicine on a Pokemon in the field, you take it out of its Pokeball, so that isn't quite as relevant here. What I'm talking about is how in the Pokemon Center, a nurse puts your Pokeballs into a machine and all your Pokemon are suddenly healed without ever leaving their Pokeballs. So how does this work? The existence of heal balls actually gives us a lot of enlightenment on this. Due to the fact that a heal ball can heal a Pokemon on its own, that means that Pokeballs must have some built-in mechanism for administering medicine to Pokemon. So this is probably how healing machines work. The healing machine uses some sort of mechanism within the Pokeball to transfer medicine into them, which in turn administers the medicine to a Pokemon, much like how a heal ball administers medicine to a Pokemon when it's first caught. How exactly this medicine is applied is harder to explain, but I suspect that it's sprayed in a mist, similar to how potions are applied to Pokemon in the anime. Revives and ethers are probably modified to be applied in the same manner. So there we have it. Pokeballs that specialize in a certain category of Pokemon have specialized internal environments, other kinds are just harder to break out of, and Pokeballs have a built-in mechanism for administering medicine to Pokemon, as long as the healing machine is used. These answers aren't 100% confirmed, but I feel pretty solid about them because they make a lot of sense. What did you think of this video? Do you agree with my answers? What are some other Pokemon questions you want me to answer? Let me know in the comments below! And if you like this video, be sure to leave a like, and if you haven't already, you should definitely subscribe for more fun Pokemon content of all kinds. Alright, that's all I have for now, so until next time, Pokefans, gotta catch them all!